one of the things I'm talking to my students now is our theme of the year, which is this idea of musical freedom, exploring music as an inner journey, right? It's like playing with heart, like playing to the feeling and that kind of thing. So it's like right now I'm just kind of randomly picking out a C chord, and it's kind of relaxing, right? It kind of gets you like centered in your heart. And so it's like life can be really up and down. Like maybe work's crazy, traffic was crazy, family life's crazy, whatever it is. And then you pick up your guitar and you just kind of start playing through a chord, even if something just as simple as this. And it really is just like, all right, now I feel like myself again. Now I feel connected to myself. I can feel centered in my heart. And that's part of the magic of music. And so that's what we're talking about here, is just this ability to just kind of let go into the flow of it and enjoy it, So you can try different things, like just picking through different chords, even switching your chords, and you can think about it from a technical standpoint of there's technical things where we have to learn our chords, we learn our scales and all this kind of stuff, but ultimately this is just geared towards us playing music, right? And I think it was Bob Dylan that said that all we really need for a great song is 3 chords and the truth. And to that I might even add, a feeling for the truth, like that artist's intuition, that artist's connection that just expresses what is true, even if they're not thinking about it. It's artistically expressed, and we can all feel that and connect with it. So instead of just trying to do things where we're imitating our favorite artists and what we think is popular and stuff like that, we can literally just sit down and be very genuine with it. And it's like right now I'm just picking through chords and just going with the sound of it, and just letting that flow. And so when we can open up like that, then it's like that creativity can just flow, right? It's like we're more at one with our creative center. That can just flow. And this kind of connection, this kind of thing is again, it's what's going to be expressed here is going to be something more genuine. And when you're really genuine and not just trying to imitate, but you're really learning to tap into your own creative center and go with the flow on it and just let things get expressed. This is how, create the music that can save lost souls, because it's genuine and people can feel that and connect to it too, and they can have that moment themselves of just okay, I feel better, I feel like myself, this kind of thing. So it's not like sitting down to write music and being like, okay, I'm gonna write a song, it's gonna be in E minor, it's gonna be all cool and whatever. In other words, not trying to force things, but more just allowing, patiently awaiting that moment of grace, that moment of inspiration to come, right? And so this is what we're talking about here. It's just being connected to music. So in that way, when you do learn new things, maybe you learn new kinds of chords, like 7th chords and whatnot, you learn your scales and stuff like this. This should still just be oriented towards you playing music, right? You have new tools for your expression of music. And when you're very consciously on the path of being connected to music like this, well then again, it's you're connecting to everything, to the world, to yourself, and you're expressing something that is genuine, it's at one with your own heart, you're learning more about life, about yourself, so it's with music, say at work, for example, you get given a task and you're supposed to hand it in within a certain amount of time, and so it's very left-brained, right? Um, that's not music, in the way that I'm thinking about it, the way we're talking about here. Music is more of like, okay, you're at the beach and you got the sun is setting, and so you've got those waves rolling in. It's nice and relaxing, beautiful sun. It's coloring the sky in a certain way that's like it's all new. It's all happening right now, and you're just taking that in, and it feels good, and you feel connected to life, to the world, to yourself, that kind of thing. It's like that's more like what music is, right? It's kind of like if you got the person that's like, maybe trying to be the scientist about it or something. It's like, well, actually what's specifically happening is the sun is radiating the clouds and whatever. Well, they kind of kill it, don't they? Or you're just like, all right, let's relax and let go of that and just enjoy the whole thing. Take in the experience. And, there's something very immediate about that. And so like a lot of the world's best musicians, or maybe even people that aren't heard of, right? Because they're not trying to be part of the pop scene or whatever it is. They're not trying to play things that are like, okay, this is what everybody wants to hear. They're playing the stuff that is just genuine for them, and so when people hear that, they can connect with it. So this is what we're talking about here. So I hope this gives you some perspective, because if you're taking an approach where it's like, say you're just learning how to read music, and then you've got that sheet music there, and then you're playing to the sheet music, that kind of thing, and that's all you do. Well, that's kind of taking the path of imitation in the sense of the fact that it's like, okay, you always have to have that piece of music between you and your instrument to be able to play stuff, and it's always somebody else's music and that kind of thing. I'm not saying this isn't part of music or even a good learning tool. It's really one slice of the pie. And, so we get these musicians that can sit down and they can maybe play a beautiful Mozart piece, Beethoven, whatever it is, and they just nail it out. And I've had this experience a lot of times with classically trained musicians where they do that and it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and then like, all right, well, let's jam. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. Or like, well, do you ever write anything? Like, no, I don't know how to do any of that. Like, or even just sitting down at their instrument and just playing like and exploring, like free flow is just like something that usually that I've seen time and time again for a lot of people that took that path of training, that's just really not there for them. And that's okay, everybody has their own goals. I'm just saying that for me, in the way I teach my students, this is an important thing of just being able to sit down and play your instrument, right? And explore with it. So like maybe you take your chords that you're working out and you start to play inside of the chord, like just moving notes inside of the chord. And doing this kind of thing, you will start to build an intuition for where you want to go. Like say you're playing even just in your pentatonic scale. Well, you do it enough where you're feeling it out and that kind of thing. And you start to get a sense for, well, this is where I want to go next. And, like you start to build that artist's intuition where you're like, oh, I can hear that next note. And as you keep playing around with it and practicing it, but then you start to know where that note is. Or like when you're playing your chords, even if it's just basic chords, you're just doing your GDC or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. Then, you start to get a feeling for like, oh, I'm hearing what that next chord I want to be is. Oh, it's that chord, And as you explore, you can build on that. You can also get specific. You can say, okay, you know what, I'm going to explore sus2 chords or seventh chords. And then you can build an ear for yourself. We're like, okay, I'm doing my GDC stuff, but I'm also starting to throw in those seventh chords and get a sense for where they can fit into that sense that I have that I'm building for myself, right? I'll also have my students do things where like, okay, we're just playing in say E minor, and then they're playing around in their scale, and so they're just kind of like finding different shapes that they can find, and even doing things where they're like letting go of the shape and just kind of playing in the scale for a second, and maybe find another position that you can go in, and you can go right into one of your normal chords or a variation. You know, so you can, in other words, just a sort of free form way of exploring around. And of course, the more you know, you can do this. And so when we learn these things, like, you know, our scales, our modes, different kinds of chords, how to just kind of move around inside of our chords, they become a way for us to be able to explore. And so again, this kind of path is a way to connect with your own creative center, to be at one with that, for that creativity to be able to just flow. So in that way, you know, when you do learn things, like you learn other people's songs, you learn, like, you know, different things, like, you know, different arpeggios, different scales, how to do just different things that you can do. Well, then they just become tools for your ability to just express music. So that's really what I'm talking about when I say, you know, this musical freedom to explore into, you know, music as an inner journey, because it is an inner journey. And I'm also talking about facing into this directly, very consciously, a thing where we can sort of let go of our ego and just go with the flow with it. Because a lot of times when our ego wants to just kind of grab onto the thing and say, okay, I have it. And like, when you do that, it's like you don't have it, right? And so like a box that people get caught in a lot of times is they get so used to doing, like, say maybe it's basic chords, and so they can do their G, D, C, A minor, whatever it is, chords kind of thing, and they're so used to that, and then it kind of becomes a box for them where, like, they don't know how to, you know, get outside of that. Well, what I'm talking about will lead you outside of that. Like, take those basic chords and try moving around inside of them. Learn different kinds of chords that you will fit in your scale. Like, how do the seventh chords fit in your scale? These kind of things. And so then in this way, you don't always just have to play other people's music. You can also explore and do your own thing.